After being reborn, I deliberately avoided every encounter with Alan. He was transferred to the Eastern Military District, while I applied to Northwest University. He submitted the marriage report, which I secretly took back. He bought a marital home over there, so I simply stayed at the Aerospace Research Institute. Only because in a past life, his first love bore a child out of wedlock for him, giving him the ideal love he longed for. When I found out, my daughter was smiling and calling her first love mom. After it happened, my daughter urged me to divorce her father, to honor their unwavering love. Meanwhile, my life, praised as that of a virtuous wife and good mother, was lived like a hellish joke. Aerospace Technology Research Center Office. Before submitting the marriage registration form, I secretly took it back and replaced it with a new one. Director Wren looked at me strangely. "Aren't you and Alan planning to get married? How come you submitted the marriage registration in the morning, and by the afternoon you're the one changing the form? Have you decided not to get married?" I said seriously, "Director, you don't have much confidence in my abilities, right?" After some thought, I've decided to follow the organization's arrangement and devote myself to the aerospace research program. Director Wren was surprised and smiled, saying, "Not bad, young one, you have awareness. The country needs your talent." In my past life, to support Alan's work, I had to give up my own career and play the role of his dutiful wife. What I got in return was a lifetime of being despised and abandoned. I walked out of the office and threw the marriage report he had prepared into the trash bin. This life, there's no way I'm marrying him. Looking back on my previous life, although I married him, his attitude toward me was very cold. I thought that was just his personality, so I didn't take it to heart. Little did I know, as I was half a step into the grave, I discovered he had a first love by his side. My first love stayed by his side, eventually crossing the line and having a son. Alan's family, seeing that my first love had a child, tacitly accepted their relationship. Due to the policies at the time, military marriages couldn't be dissolved, and if it got out, it would be disgraceful. Everyone kept it from me. Even my daughter was drawn to the so-called free and independent charm of my first love's personality. Behind my back, she secretly associated with them. By chance, at a gathering with friends, I stumbled upon them celebrating my first love's birthday joyfully at a restaurant. My daughter presented a designer handbag as a gift and sweetly called her mom. My husband looked at my first love with admiration. At that moment, I felt as if struck by thunder, my vision went black. When I came to, I was paralyzed in the hospital, unable to leave again. Lying in the hospital, I reflected on all his actions. It turned out that every time he was transferred at work, there was a reason behind it. It was all to serve as a protective shield for Serena's business empire. Though we were husband and wife, the actual time we spent together probably didn't add up to a year. When I suffered a severe hemorrhage during childbirth, he wasn't there. But when Serena gave birth, he stayed by her side. Our daughter was frail and often ill. I braved the wind and snow, watching over her day and night, fearful of any mishap. Even when I was fulfilling my filial duties by attending to his parents' passing, he was with Serena, enjoying family bliss. Serena was an artist. After studying abroad, she ventured into business. With him acting as her protective shield, her career flourished brilliantly. Outsiders all thought they were the real couple. Even my own daughter despised me as a plain, yellow-faced woman, wishing I would die soon so they could fulfill their undying love. In my past life, I truly lived as a clown. Returning to the dormitory, I saw the vintage posters hanging on the wall, my feelings tangled. In the previous life, after marrying Alan, I lived here. Not long after, Alan was transferred to the Eastern Military District. As his family member, I was supposed to accompany him. But when I became pregnant, Alan said there was no one to take care of me in the military district, so he left me here. From then on, my life was trapped within this 40-square-meter room. What I didn't know was that Serena had returned from overseas and was pursuing him again. Serena truly lived up to her Western-style free love education and didn't care that he was married. She said what she wanted was love, not marriage. From then on, the two of them began to entangle with each other. The ridiculous thing was, his subordinates treated her like a sister-in-law. As for me, being in my hometown, I still worried about Alan being alone out there with no one to take care of him. Alan rejected my attempts to get close, saying first that he could take care of himself, and second that his parents and children at home couldn't be left without care. From beginning to end, he never once considered my situation. He enjoyed his love with Serena on one hand, and on the other hand enjoyed the maid services of his wife. At this point, I let out a bitter laugh and threw the photo of the two of us from the cabinet into the drawer. I also took the aerospace theory and technical books I had originally packed up and laid them back out on the desk. Once, for the sake of marriage, I gave up my career, my hobbies, and could no longer continue my aerospace research work. That was the greatest regret of my past life. I picked up a crumpled piece of paper from the trash bin, a Western Aerospace Research invitation, with my 1-inch black and white photo on it. In the photo, I wore a lively smile. I had forgotten how long it had been since I last smiled like that. In my past life, I was so angry I had a stroke. After a thorough examination, they found I also had stomach cancer, which was spreading rapidly. Serena knew I was dying soon and always came to visit me dressed flamboyantly. Only when others were not around did she reveal her true self, speaking the cruelest words in the gentlest voice. She clicked her tongue and said, "Faye, you've been Alan's nanny your whole life. What's the point? In the end, besides your reputation as a good wife and mother, what have you left behind? Look at you, sick, who's by your side? Your daughter despises you for being submissive and spineless, yet she says she wants to learn from me, to be an independent woman of the new era." She looked at me, gravely ill, with deep sympathy. And I, not even having the strength to retort, could only watch helplessly as my daughter happily called her godmother, cared for her tenderly, and gazed at this woman who had destroyed my family and taken my husband away with admiration. In the end, as I was dying, I still heard my daughter urging Serena, "Godmother, life is short, you and Dad should hold on to each other." The past is unbearable to recall. When I saw the Western Experimental Research Base project proposal again, it felt like a lifetime ago. I smoothed out the wrinkles on it bit by bit. Everything, there's still time. After I tidied up the books, I was in a great mood, ready to have a hearty meal. Just as the food was ready, I saw Alan come in from outside, covered in dust and mud. It looked like he had rolled around in the bushes. Seeing him like this, I suddenly remembered things from my past life. Seeing him so disheveled, I thought he might have had an accident during a mission. Worried, I looked at him and asked if he was hurt. He just said lightly that he was fine. Now, looking again, I see he has a wound on his lip. I was too naive before, now I can tell exactly what kind of injury it is. When Serena found out he was going to marry me, she hurried to find him and caused a scene. I sighed softly, so they were already entangled at that time. No wonder Alan was so cold to me. After all, his first love came back, and he was willing to risk everything for her. He should regret marrying me, a military marriage can't be dissolved and would affect his promotion. So, he put on a show of loyalty while secretly making moves behind my back, playing the role of the devoted confidant. As for me, he kept saying he would treat me well and be responsible. In reality, he toyed with me like a puppet, turning me into the wicked mother-in-law who breaks them apart. Now, when I see Alan return in such a sorry state, I cast a cold, indifferent glance at him. Unlike in my past life, I don't rush to fetch medicine or tend to his wounds. I brought over the bowls and chopsticks. "Want to eat?" Alan changed his clothes and came out, sitting at the dining table, distracted. He didn't eat much, suddenly put down his chopsticks, and said uneasily, "I have something to do, I'm going out for a while." I pretended not to hear, finished my meal, tidied up the kitchen, took a shower, and sat at my desk, flipping through aerospace research plans. I marked a day on the calendar. 10 days from now, I would be heading to the Western Aerospace Research Base with the organization. Leaving here forever. That night, I slept well, got up to wash, and prepared to go to work. Before leaving, I unexpectedly heard Alan coughing. "He's back? When did he come back?" I shook my head, pretending not to hear. Foolishness, having lived a past life is enough. This life, I will live for myself. After submitting the application, I couldn't wait to know the result. Before leaving, it's best not to stir up trouble and to avoid Alan as much as possible. I had just opened the door when a slender woman stood before me, her face pale, lips bright red, slightly swollen. Her appearance stirred all kinds of thoughts. Seeing her, I held my breath, involuntarily recalling my last hospital stay. Serena changed into new clothes every day, wearing exquisite makeup and red high heels, exuding a powerful aura. Compared to me, half buried in the earth, I was utterly unsightly. Unexpectedly, Serena looked at me now, appraising me from head to toe, a hint of a suggestive smile playing on her lips. "Hello, I'm here to see Alan." If Serena hadn't chosen to go abroad back then, they would have been together long ago. Thinking this, I felt relieved. I was too tired to argue with her, so I said softly, "Please move aside." I slipped past her, went straight downstairs, hopped on my bike, and headed to the Aerospace Research Institute. Inside, everyone was discussing the trip to the Western Research Base. If you went to the base, your life would basically be handed over to the country, living in isolation from the world. Director Wren confirmed my intention once again. Without hesitation, I signed the confirmation form. Director Wren nodded with satisfaction, then talked to me about the direction of aerospace work, the departure in 9 days, and told me to prepare my family mentally. My parents had long passed away. It was Uncle David who raised me, and my father was a subordinate of Alan's father. Uncle David didn't like Serena, who was infatuated with foreign things, and valued me more, hoping Alan would marry me to be his virtuous wife. Back then, I was young and thought feelings could be nurtured. Little did I know, what he wanted was a nanny, not a marriage. After work, I returned to the dorm, expecting Alan to be out, but saw him writing a report at the dining table. Noticing my surprised expression, he opened his mouth to say something, but I averted my gaze and carried the dishes into the kitchen. I began preparing lunch, and when I brought the dishes out, he had already set the bowls and chopsticks. Sitting down to eat, I had no intention to speak, focusing solely on my meal. Alan glanced at me from the corner of his eye, then finally put down his chopsticks. "Faye, Serena came over today." "I believe you." I stopped him with a single sentence. He looked at me in surprise. Alan was excellent in every way, always surrounded by beautiful girls with impressive backgrounds vying for his attention. I felt jealous. My insecure self once timidly asked him what he thought. He looked at me mockingly. "You don't trust me? Then how are we supposed to get married?" A wave of bitterness welled up inside me, but I could only swallow it alone. After spending a lifetime with him, I understood, it wasn't me, it was the person. When the one you love is wrong, everything about you feels wrong. Where Alan's heart lay no longer mattered to me. After finishing my meal, I tidied up my dishes and returned to my room to continue reviewing my books. Suddenly, a knock on the door interrupted my train of thought. "Tomorrow I have something to do, I can't accompany you home," Alan's voice came from outside the door. I was stunned for a moment. This really happened in my past life. After filing the marriage report, the two of us were supposed to go to Uncle David's house for dinner. I had spent the whole day preparing, thinking for him, buying a bunch of things. Yet, he stood me up. I looked apologetically at Uncle, who comforted me, saying he understood that Alan was busy with work. Hearing my reply, he said he understood. He twisted the doorknob and found the door was still locked from the inside. "Faye, I bought some wedding candies." I brushed my teeth. "Leave it in the living room," I said, restraining my impatience. He lingered at the door for a while before turning and leaving. I stretched lazily and looked around, seeing the things I had brought when preparing to get married. In these times, resources were scarce, and I didn't have many clothes. 2 burlap bags were enough to hold them all. More importantly, my aerospace reference books had to be taken back to the office. Later, I could pack them together and bring them to the base. After tidying up, I couldn't help but think of my uncle and aunt. Since my parents passed away, they had raised me like their own daughter, and seeing me marry well made them happy. Due to the limitations of the era, they believed that a woman marrying a high-quality man was the key to happiness. Especially since Alan was the most outstanding young man in our compound. If it weren't for Uncle David, I would never have had the chance to get close to Alan. We had been together for a year, and our relationship gradually deepened. Until half a month ago, Uncle David made the final decision and told us we could register our marriage. Everyone said I was incredibly lucky to marry Alan. After all, Alan's family background was good, and his parents didn't look down on my origins. They even said my ancestors were highly respected. To be honest, when Alan and I first got together, I hadn't fully understood the situation. In my past life, I married blindly, had children blindly, and lived my life blindly. I earned the reputation of a virtuous wife and good mother. The moment I closed my eyes, I reviewed this life. For Alan, for the family, for the children, I never lived for myself. I was always cautious with Alan, only to find that when he faced me, his heart was elsewhere. He married me because he saw that I could be a good wife. His love was for Serena. All his responsibilities were dumped on me. I sneered, packed everything up, tore down the red double happiness paper cut from the window, and threw it into the trash. Looking at the savings, I bought a bunch of gifts and went back to my uncle's house. My uncle and aunt mistakenly thought they were from Alan. This is too extravagant, keep them for yourself. After marriage, it's all about daily expenses, money will be needed everywhere. I knew they had put a lot of effort into my dowry. I sold those things and found ways to pay them back. I said it was a bonus from work, and after some back and forth, they finally accepted it. Since my uncle and aunt were laid off, life hadn't been easy for them. I figured the winds of reform and opening up were about to blow through, so I thought about helping them open a small daily goods shop. My uncle gave a bitter smile and said they had no capital. I took out my savings and offered it as their initial investment. At first, my uncle refused, but I told him we'd be partners, I'd provide the money, he'd do the work, and I'd offer advice. Hearing this, he was tempted and reluctantly accepted. Leaving my uncle's house, they gave me some freshly harvested vegetables. Carrying the basket, I walked briskly toward the dormitory building, when I heard a familiar argument. Under the parasol tree not far away, a woman frowned as she shoved an envelope into a man's chest. "I'm not a beggar, why would I want your money?" Alan said, "If you lose money in business, how do you plan to pay off your debts? Don't do things like dealing in smuggled goods anymore. If it gets exposed, it won't be good for you." Serena's red lips curved lightly, "You still care about me." As she spoke, her peripheral vision caught sight of me, and her smile faltered slightly. She quickly stuffed the money into Alan's pocket. "Don't get me wrong, Alan and I are just friends. It's just that the goods I was dealing with recently had some issues, so I asked him for help." She spoke with complete openness, her gaze never wavering. Bright and radiant like the sun in the sky. No wonder Alan was so captivated by her. What surprised me even more was the embarrassment on Alan's face, stiffly staring at me, mouth agape, as if he wanted to say something. "Not bad." I smiled faintly, carrying the vegetables, too lazy to even glance at them, and went upstairs to cook. Now they can do whatever they want, it's none of my business. If it weren't for Uncle David, I wouldn't want to stay in this crappy dorm for even a day. The base is a place where Uncle David's reach doesn't extend. I wanted to make oil-splashed noodles. Just as the water boiled, Alan walked in and stood at the kitchen doorway. Seeing me busy bustling around, not even thinking of talking to him, he pressed his lips together and was the first to break the silence. "Faye, just now." I spoke first, "I believe you." His words caught in his throat as he carefully studied my expression. Seeing no trace of displeasure on my face, he instead grew more serious. I asked him if he wanted to eat noodles. Only when he was sure I wasn't really angry did he finally breathe a sigh of relief. "You've become so magnanimous now." I pretended not to hear his sarcastic tone. At this point, I was too tired to care if he was upset. This man, is there something wrong with his brain? If he's sick, he should see a doctor. Why take it out on me? Though I didn't care, he stubbornly explained she wanted to do business, smuggled goods once, got caught by customs, and had to pay a fine. I borrowed money to help her negotiate. After all, we grew up together. Alan was obviously still concerned about her. After all, a passionate, free-spirited woman naturally attracted him. His life was too routine. I said I didn't mind, yet he still had to find a way to annoy me. So, I smiled and said, "That's true, helping her is much more important than going back to Uncle's with me." Alan's expression stiffened at my words, then as if recalling something, he smiled and said, "Tomorrow, I'll accompany you back again, how about that?" Not how about that. I thought for a moment and calmly asked, "Maybe we shouldn't get married. If Uncle David is forcing you, I'll handle it, how about that?" Saying this, I swear on my conscience, I was truly supporting their love. But Alan frowned deeply. "The report has already been submitted. How can we just decide not to get married? Doing this would betray the trust of the party and the organization." I opened my mouth wide and handed him a glass of water. "All right, I heard you." Not wanting to get entangled with him, I tidied up the kitchen and returned to my room. Wanting to improve my uncle and aunt's life, I gave them money, but they still had no clue how to start a business. I thought about drafting key business points, what kind of business to do and what to pay attention to. After finishing, I looked at the date. In 8 days, I could leave this place. My mood lifted a little. There was a knock on the door. I was surprised he wasn't resting yet. "Come out, I have something to give you." As soon as I stepped out, I saw him holding a gift box with English writing on it. It was clearly an international brand of skincare, the kind Serena represents. He looked at me with hopeful eyes and cleared his throat twice. "I heard girls like this." I asked back, "You got this from your studies?" He replied, "A colleague." "No need. I'm not used to applying these things. Using Pecoin is enough for me." Alan clearly didn't expect me to refuse. "Buy it, and give it a try." His attitude left no room for me to say no. If we kept stalling like this, I wouldn't get any sleep tonight. Reluctantly, I accepted it and put it in the drawer, planning to return it to him intact later. Seeing me take it, Alan reached out to touch my head, but I dodged. He awkwardly said goodnight, and we each went to rest. The next day, after work, I went straight to my uncle's house. My uncle and aunt had spent the whole night discussing, still uncertain despite the startup funds I gave them. When they saw me arrive with a business plan in hand, complete with thorough market analysis, my uncle was surprised that I had such a talent in this area. Where others see talent, it's really just the regrets of a past life filled with ideas but no action. In that past life, my uncle and aunt struggled constantly just to make ends meet, living a life of hardship and scarcity. When illness struck, they couldn't even afford treatment. This time around, I refused to let that tragedy repeat itself. My uncle and aunt were still uncertain, so I simply called Alan and told him I'd be staying at my uncle's place this week to help them come up with plans and strategies. After securing the shop and the supply sources, I even made a striking signboard. On the first day of opening, the sales were quite good. Having a shop was so much better than braving the wind and rain outside with a street stall. If they live well, I'll have fewer worries weighing on my heart after I leave. By the time I returned to the dormitory, a week had passed. Exhausted, I collapsed onto the bed and fell into a deep, heavy sleep. Not long after, I was awakened by noises outside, instinctively thinking it was a rat. Opening the door, I was met with the sight of handsome men and beautiful women bustling in the kitchen, with Western pastries laid out on the table. The sweet, cloying aroma filled the air. A phrase popped into my mind, "This damn love stinks of sourness." Serena, holding a plate of stir-fried squid, turned around and, upon seeing me, her face drained of color. With a loud crash, the stir-fried squid fell to the floor, the plate shattering into pieces. Alan hurriedly asked if she was hurt, then followed Serena's gaze and saw me. His face went pale again, like a husky whose tail had been stepped on, clearly flustered. "When did you get back?" Alan seemed to sense something was off and quickly added, "Why didn't you call me? I could have come to pick you up." I wouldn't dare trouble Captain Allen. Sorry for showing up so suddenly. Did I disturb you? Should I leave? I smiled brightly at Alan, then glanced at Serena. Alan wore a serious expression. Serena and I are just ordinary friends. We're having a meal together at home, don't get the wrong idea. Serena quickly nodded and smiled. Faye, Alan and I grew up together. If there was anything between us, it would have happened long ago. Alan stepped forward first and came up to me. You weren't home, and there was a lot of food, so I invited her over to eat. Don't make a fuss. The two of them were surprisingly in sync. One would say something, the other would respond, completely painting me as a woman bursting with jealousy. It seemed that even while dating me, he hadn't let go of his feelings for Serena. Under the guise of having grown up together, they were engaged in a mutual love affair. Faced with Serena's disdainful provocation, I couldn't stand it. On impulse, I slapped Alan's face with the back of my hand. Both of them froze, staring at me in shock. I flexed my wrist, locking eyes with the confident Serena, sneered coldly, and picked up a pen. On the calendar hanging on the wall, I crossed out 7 days in one sweep. The day after tomorrow. Just the day after tomorrow, I could leave this damned place and no longer have my eyes polluted by this scarred love. Serena looked at me in surprise. It seemed my cold, unflinching indifference, my composure, embarrassed her. Alan was equally baffled. Seeing my actions, he called my name and tried to explain further, there's nothing between Serena and me. I looked at the food on the table, just as I was feeling hungry. You can't shortchange others, but you also can't shortchange your own stomach. I definitely don't want to get stomach cancer in this lifetime. I picked up my chopsticks and started eating. Serena pressed her lips together, and Alan quietly saw her off. When he came back, I had already finished my meal. He looked at the handwriting on the calendar. What do the crossed-out dates mean? I smiled softly. Nothing. Alan sighed. Didn't you say you trust me? Yeah. I trust your love. I just don't want to tear things apart with him and make a big ugly scene. Alan noticed the double happiness character was missing from my bedroom, and a pile of aerospace reference books sat on the desk. Your Aerospace Research Institute is preparing to conduct base experiments in the Xinjiang Gobi Desert. Hearing this, my heart tightened. Alan laughed and said, that place is very harsh. After you marry me, you can avoid going to the base. I recalled the development of aerospace technology in the late 1990s, which was inseparable from this experimental plan. Seeing his doubtful gaze, I casually brushed it off with a few words. Alan saw my expression return to normal and told me to get some rest early. The next morning, to my surprise, Alan took the initiative to go out and buy breakfast. He brought back my favorite millet porridge and fried dough sticks. Looking at the date on the calendar, I felt an inexplicable joy. Tomorrow morning, I would set off with the organization. Alan saw the look in my eyes as I glanced at the calendar and smiled, saying, Are you looking forward to the marriage certificate? The review will definitely be fine, you'll be able to get it soon. No way, I thought, my eyelid twitching as I saw he had no intention of going out. I asked, Aren't you working today? Alan said, We're about to get married. Yesterday, I noticed you don't have many clothes, so I'll take you to buy some, and we'll also get some household items. Since I was leaving tomorrow, I didn't need to go to the office today. Thinking about going to the western base, where there's neither village nor shop nearby, I figured I should prepare a few more sets of clothes for myself, so I didn't refuse. I had just finished tidying up and went downstairs with Alan, where I saw Serena looking pale. She wasn't wearing any makeup, her complexion much paler, with dark circles under her eyes. Compared to her usual brightness, she now looked so weak it stirred my pity. Serena held out a high-end skincare product to me. About yesterday, I'm sorry. This is my apology gift. Please accept it. I didn't take it. Serena's hand trembled, but her eyes held no good intentions. Only a woman could sense the provocation in her gaze. I walked past her deliberately, and as I passed by, I heard the branded cosmetics fall to the floor. Her body went limp and she collapsed. Alan was about to catch her, but I reached her first. I felt her body stiffen in my arms. "Oh my God, she's fainted." I shouted to the neighbor lady, "Quick, come and bleed her finger." Serena's body trembled again, stubbornly refusing to wake up. I had to admire her terribly poor acting. Alan hurriedly said, "She has hypoglycemia and needs a glucose injection." Saying that, he scooped Serena up in his arms and rushed to the nearest clinic. I followed behind, watching as Serena received the glucose drip and slowly woke up. Seeing me still there, her face darkened. Alan turned to me, pulling a wallet from his pocket. "I can't stay with you. You go shopping on your own." I really couldn't understand their scarred love. They wanted the privileges of love but refused to bear the responsibilities of marriage. Seeing that I didn't take the money, Alan's hand awkwardly froze in midair. I said, "How about I give the bride's place to her?" Perhaps my proposal was too shocking. Serena widened her beautiful eyes at me. Alan's lips tightened, about to scold me. But I spoke first. "On the day you report your marriage, the two of you should be together." Alan's gaze flickered. I looked him in the eye, then glanced at Serena, smiling as I said to Alan, "You grew up together, know each other inside out, it's good, you're a good match. Keep the money for her to spend, help her rebuild her career." Alan frowned. "Faye, don't make such vulgar jokes." "Vulgar?" I said, "I'm just saying a few words. You take her home for Western meals, spend money to help her handle troubles. Alan, I've suggested before, I can handle your father's side, you can change your marriage partner. You said marriage isn't a game. Now, look at how you treat Miss Serena, no principles, no bottom line, no stance at all. Do I look like someone easy to bully? Must you leer at me every day and disgust me?" I stared coldly into his eyes and said solemnly, "The engagement is off." Alan's eyes suddenly widened. "You said you trusted me. But you betrayed my trust." I turned away, only to be grabbed suddenly by Alan. He said, "Don't be angry. I only see her as a sister. She had a falling out with her family and rarely asked me for help. Feeling sorry for her, I couldn't easily refuse. That's why I helped her, nothing more." I pushed his hand away, then saw Serena's delicate face pale and her eyes red-rimmed. Perhaps someone experiencing first love, still thinking Alan loved her, never imagined he pitied her. Her proud self-esteem had suffered a tremendous blow. I was about to leave when I heard his voice from behind. "Once I finish handling things here, I'll come find you right away." I took a stroll around the market, bought 3 sets of clothes, and finally went to my uncle's house to grab a meal, chatting with them for a while. When I got home, I wrote 2 letters, one to mail to my uncle, and the other to Uncle David, explaining the reason for breaking off the engagement. I'm not one for rivalry over love, so I told Uncle David that Alan's heart belongs to Serena. I don't want to take what belongs to someone else, I hope he can let true love be. Most importantly, I have a sincere heart that loves my country, scientific research, and the aerospace cause. I hope Uncle David will also support me in pursuing my dreams and serving my homeland. After finishing this letter, I thought about Serena doing business and her fondness for smuggling schemes. So I added a few extra warnings to prevent her from getting involved in that kind of activity, which could affect Uncle David. After all the terrible things that happened afterward occurred after Uncle David passed away. After I finished writing the letter and woke up from a sleep, I found that Alan hadn't returned all night. In the end, I made the perfect final stroke on the desk calendar. Grabbing my suitcase, I dropped the 2 letters into the green mailbox. Following the original plan, I boarded the big truck heading to the western base. The vehicle left City A, and I watched the birds flying freely in the sky. In this life, I will restart my journey of dreams. It's not about money. I will dedicate my life to my dream of space exploration. Alan's perspective. I've been restless all night. Serena was desperately holding on to me, unwilling to let me go. Stay with me for just one more day. After that day, I'll disappear from your life, I promise. Serena dragged me to a street food stall, and she drank a lot. The security tonight wasn't great. I walked her home. She resisted, throwing herself into my arms. I regret it. Don't get married. Let's be together, okay? If she had said this a year ago, I would have been overjoyed. But looking at her face now, the image of Faye's face flashed through my mind. You're drunk. I'm not drunk, I can only say I'm sober, I can't bear to lose you. Serena grabbed my sleeve. You still have feelings for me, right? I said, no, I'm getting married. She was stunned. Do you love her? You don't love her at all. If it weren't for your dad, how could you possibly marry her? I said, I don't know what love is, but I have feelings for her and want to spend my life with her. Serena's face changed drastically. I sent Serena home. Because it was too late and my mother wanted me to stay, I slept at the old house. Thinking about how I needed to explain everything to Faye tomorrow, but when I returned to the dorm, I found it was already empty. I searched everywhere for any sign of her, only to learn that she had gone to the Western Aerospace Technology Base for applied experiments. Everyone was surprised that I didn't know. What was even more absurd was that on the very day I submitted the marriage report, she had already taken it back. And I finally understood what the dates she crossed off on the calendar meant. It was a countdown to her departure. She left, placing all the things I had given her back in their original spots: clothes, shoes, and even cosmetics. I went to see her uncle and aunt. They too were surprised by her sudden disappearance. It wasn't until her letter arrived. She had written to my father, but not a single word to me. I went to find Dad and asked him what she had written. When I saw the contents of the letter, my face went pale. The way Dad looked at me, I would have preferred him to whip me. If you want to like Serena, I won't stop you, I instinctively retorted. I don't like Serena. Dad, call her back, or I'll go find her. The aerospace experiment is a national key project, a state secret. It's not something I can interfere with. Dad rubbed his forehead. He said wearily, do you think she's reaching above herself for you? In reality, it's you who don't deserve her. I lowered my head, thinking of her smile. Returning to the empty dormitory, my heart felt just as hollow. Before long, a deafening knock came at the door. Serena came running to me. My shipment has been held by customs, can you help me? My face turned ashen. Looking at this girl who only wanted to take shortcuts through connections, my mind was filled with thoughts of foreign freedom and culture. In reality, she was a refined egoist. I said coldly, didn't I warn you not to smuggle goods again? Do you know who's investigating me? It's your dad. I was surprised. Serena said, it was Faye who reported me because I ruined your relationship. She's taking revenge on me, and you have to take responsibility. I had warned her before not to take shortcuts. She agreed verbally but immediately went back on her word. Get lost. I snapped impatiently. Serena trembled, tears streaming down her face. Are you being harsh to me? I pushed her out the door, closed it behind her, and immediately headed to the military. I changed the original plan, the East became the West. I didn't know if I could still catch up to her. But I wanted to do everything to make amends. To find her, apologize, and hope to start over. Only, I never managed to find her. It was as if she had handed herself over to the state, and all information about her became classified. When I saw her again, it was on an afternoon 4 years later. That day, just as I was about to approach her, I saw another man take her hand. She leaned against him, and when she saw me, she greeted me calmly. Smiling, she introduced him to me, this is my boyfriend. At that moment, a phrase echoed in my mind, the most heartbreaking thing about meeting an ex is when she greets you as if nothing happened. She had already walked away, while I remained frozen in place.